call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the Committee of Adjustment meeting of March 6, 2018. My name is Mario Russo, Committee Chair. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. The Committee of Adjustment is composed of 5 citizen members who are appointed by Brampton City Council. The committee is authorized by the Ontario Planning Act to consider applications for minor variances from the provisions of the City of Brampton zoning bylaw. The committee also considers applications for consent, sometimes referred to as land division applications, which includes severing a new lot from an existing lot, a lot addition, easements, mortgages, or leases in excess of 21 years. My first request is to ask those present to ensure that all cell phones and other electronic devices are turned off or placed in a non-audible mode during the meeting. I'd like to introduce the committee members. Firstly, to my immediate right, member Mr. Ron Chetta. To my far right, member Mr. Richard Nurse. To my immediate left, member Ms. Desiree Doffler. And to my far left, member Mr. Robert Crouch. And again, my name is Mario Russo. Seated at the table in front of the committee is Ms. Jeannie Myers, Secretary-Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. And seated near the podium, we have city staff members who will assist the committee today. Staff, can I please get your introductions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Elizabeth Corazola. I'm the Manager of Zoning Services.
Good morning. My name is David Vandenberg. I'm a Central Area Planner with the city. And for this round of committee, I'm actually filling in for the manager role. So.
My name is Larissa Dubicki, and I'm a development planner.
My name is Matt Cavanaugh. I'm also a development planner.
Excellent. Thank you. Before we consider today's applications, the committee has some procedural matters to take care of. Firstly, the adoption of minutes of the previous meeting held February 13th, 2018. The minutes of the previous meeting are presented in today's agenda. Committee members, are there any questions or concerns with these minutes? May I get a motion? Motion to approve the minutes as presented by Mr. Nurse, seconded by Mr. Crouch. All in favor? That carries. We now move on to declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Are there any members with any declarations on today's agenda? Seeing none, we now move on to withdrawals and deferrals. I do not believe we have any written requests. Is there anyone in the audience here seeking a deferral or withdrawal? Seeing none? For those unfamiliar with the Committee of Adjustment procedure that have processed, I'll give a brief explanation and scope. Following some procedural matters that we have already undergone, the Secretary-Treasurer will then call the applications by announcing the application number, the name of the applicant, and the address of the property subject to the application. The applicant or authorized agent representing the applicant will then come down to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and present the application. I request that you reserve any questions or comments pertaining to the staff report until planning staff has had an opportunity to present. If anyone in attendance wishes to speak to a particular application, you will be given the opportunity to do so when the application is presented. Any decision made here today may be appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board by filing with the Secretary-Treasurer a completed appeal form and filing fee within the prescribed 20-day appeal period. Information pertaining to the appeal process may be obtained by contacting the Secretary-Treasurer of in the City Clerk's office. Ms. Myers?
Calling application B18008, FurCap Holdings Inc. Property is located at 81 and 91 Delta Park Boulevard.
Garden Circle in Mississauga, Ontario, postal code L5R 3K6. I have been retained by FurCap Holdings Inc., owners of 81 and 91 Delta Park Boulevard. The lands are located east of Airport Road, south of Queen Street East. The properties have a total site area of 2.47 hectares or 6.10 acres. A two-story industrial building currently exists on the property located at 91 Delta Park Boulevard. The property at 81 Delta Park Boulevard is currently vacant. The purpose of the application is to recreate the lot municipally addressed as 81 Delta Park Boulevard, which is merged on title with the adjacent 91 Delta Park Boulevard.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by committee members to the agent? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none, staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Application B18-008 is supportable subject to the following conditions being imposed. One, that the applicant provide confirmation to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services that any outside storage occurring on either the retained or severed lot complies with the zoning bylaw or has been removed if not permitted. And two, separate water, sanitary, and storm services shall be provided for each lot in accordance with the Ontario Building Code and to the satisfaction of the chief building official. Should services serving one lot cross the other, the appropriate easements shall be registered prior to the completion of the severance application and issuance of the certificate from the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer. A building permit is required for any alteration to the existing services. Thank you.
Thank you. There are also some draft conditions that the Secretary Treasurer had prepared that encompass those conditions as well. So, sir, have you had an opportunity to review all those conditions?
Yes, I have.
And they are agreeable and acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Any questions by committee members to staff? Seeing none, seeking a motion to proceed. Motion to approve. To, subject to conditions by Mr. Crouch, seconded by Ms. Doffler. All in favor? That carries. That is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Calling application A18022, 237-239 Queen Street East, Inc., which is where the property is also located.
Morning, committee. My name is Deep Mehta. I am the owner of the proposed business at 239 Queen Street East, units 24 through 26. We're seeking a minor variance to allow for a virtual reality experience center at this location. We have gone through an ICBL already, which has already been approved. And I think that's about it. Any other? I don't know what else. It's my first time at committees, excuse me.
Excellent. No, you're doing fine. I missed what your comments has already been approved, sorry?
Yes, we had a ICBL about 3 weeks ago that council passed.
Okay. Any questions by committee members to the agent? Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none, staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff has reviewed the application. I guess first a note about the interim control bylaw. So there is an interim control bylaw in place for the Queen Street corridor. Council actually passed an exemption to that bylaw specifically to allow a place of commercial recreation at this site on the 21st of February. So staff is in support of the application and finds it does meet the 4 tests. We do recommend that the following conditions be imposed. 1, the place of commercial recreation virtual reality experience center shall only be permitted within units 24 to 26 as depicted on the sketch attached to the public notice. And 2, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render their approval null and void.
Excellent. Sure, you've had an opportunity to review those conditions?
I have.
And they're acceptable and agreeable
Yes.
too? Any questions by committee members to staff or the agent? Seeing none? Motion to approve by Mr. Nurse, seconded by Mr. Crouch. All in favor? That carries. That is approved. Welcome to Brampton.
Thank you.
Calling application A18032, Woodhall Park Holdings Corporation. The property is located at 10250 Kennedy Road North.
Morning, council members. My name is Brian Bargeman. I'm with Dixon X Architects in Orangeville, Ontario. Here representing Woodhall Park Holdings. We're seeking minor variance relief for the maximum building area for client's property. It's originally zoned site-specific at a maximum of 3,900 square meters. And we are proposing to put addition on the building, and we require a maximum building area increase to 4,700 square meters. This intended to have been resolved at a previous minor variance meeting, and unfortunately it was simply overlooked on our part, and we have come back to readdress.
Thank you. And yeah, that's what I was kind of just looking at. We had dealt with something prior. This is just an addition to that.
Correct.
We'll get some clarity from staff as well. Perfect. Thank you. Any questions by committee members to the agent? Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none. Staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff reviewed the application with regard to the 4 tests as stipulated in the Planning Act and are recommending approval subject to the following 4 conditions. 1, that the variance only be approved to the general extent indicated in the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that the owner shall finalize site plan approval under City File SP15-061, execute a site plan agreement, and post any required financial securities and insurance to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services within 1 year of the final date of committee's decision, or as extended at the discretion of the Director of Development Services upon a written receipt of request for extension from the owner. 3, that the owner obtain a building permit for the additions as proposed on the plan attached to the public notice prior to commencing construction. And lastly, 4, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee will render the approved variances null and void.
Thank you. So as indicated, we had dealt with a similar application prior. That was just an overlook, an oversight in terms of the square footage prior?
That is correct.
Okay, so sir, you've had staff has indicated the conditions subject to this approval. Are they agreeable and acceptable to you as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions by committee members to the agent or to staff? Seeking motion to proceed. Motion to approve by Mr. Norris, seconded by Mr. Chadha. All in favor? That carries. That is approved, sir. Thank you.
Calling application A18033, Suklal Dionarain. The property is located at 29 Drayton Crescent.
Morning, gentlemen. My name is Suklal Dionarain, owner of 29 Drayton Crescent in Brampton.
Any explanation, sir? Or?
Well, no, I don't have any explanation at this time.
Okay. Any questions by committee members to the owner? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none, staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff reviewed the application with regard to the 4 tests as stipulated in the Planning Act and are recommending approval in part, subject to 11 conditions. The widened driveway is not considered to be realistic relative to the dwelling and the lot size as stipulated in the official plan, does not meet the intent of the bylaw with regard to limiting excessive parking, and the impact on the streetscape is not considered desirable or minor. Consequently, staff are recommending the following conditions. 1, that variances 1, 2, 3, and 4 only be approved to the extent as indicated in the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that variance 5 be refused and that the owner shall reinstate the required landscaping in accordance with the zoning bylaw to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services within 180 days of the final date of the decision of the committee, or as extended at the discretion of the Director of Development Services upon receipt of a written request for extension from the owner. 3, that approval of minor variance 3 shall only apply to the open roof porch. 4, that the owner shall obtain a building permit for the open roof porch within 60 days of the final date of the committee's decision. 5, that the open roof porch shall not be enclosed. 6, that the open roof porch shall not exceed the height of the roof of the existing dwelling. 7, that drainage from the open roof porch shall flow onto the applicant's property and that drainage on adjacent properties shall not be adversely affected. 8, that the owner shall submit elevation plans depicting modifications to the open roof porch that are consistent with the same architectural detailing, eaves, soffit, metal flashing, etc., of the roof of the existing dwelling to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services within 120 days of the final date of the decision of committee, or as extended at the discretion of the Director of Development Services upon written request for extension from the owner. 9, that the owner shall implement the modifications to the open roof porch depicted in the approved elevations as noted in Condition 8 within 180 days of the final date of committee's decision, or as extended at the discretion of the Director of Development Services upon receipt of a written request for extension from the owner. 10, that no parking of vehicles shall be permitted in the rear yard. And 11, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of committee shall render the approved variances null and void.
Thank you. So, sir, those were quite numerous. Have you had an opportunity to review and understand and agree to those conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions by committee members to the owner or to staff? Seeing none, seeking a motion to proceed. Motion to approve by Mr. Nurse? Yes, to approve variances 1, 2, 3, and 4, and refuse 5, and all the other conditions associated, correct? By Mr. Nurse? Seconded by Mr. Crouch. All in favor? That carries. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are approved, 5 is refused, as per staff's recommendations. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Calling application A18034, Tiago Maya. The property is located at 23 Harper Road.
Hi, good morning, committee members. My name is Tiago Maya. I'm the owner of 23 Harper Road, the subject property. I made a minor variance application to allow a 6-foot fence where only a 3-foot fence is permitted because I am a corner lot. There was an existing 5-foot chain link fence where I erected the 6-foot wood fence. It's actually been shortened in terms of the length of the fence because the corner lot, the fence used to go along the length of the sidewalk where my property is concerned. That part's been removed, so it's just a fence. I own a dog, so I needed the extra height for the fence. There's also a shed on the property that, upon inspection, didn't meet the required setbacks. That has been rectified. The shed has been moved because it wasn't bolted down to the ground. So the reason for making the fence or erecting the fence where there was an existing fence, being the corner lot, that is actually the side of my lot, which by law is the front lot, so hence the requirement for the bylaw.
Yeah, no, we oftentimes have that with corner properties, so understood. So any questions by committee members to the owner? Seeing none, anybody in the audience here to speak on this application? Okay.
How are you today?
How are you?
Good. I'm just his neighbor at 21 Harper. Me and my husband both agree with the fence.
Can I just get your names, just sorry for the record?
Vanessa Oliveira. Me and my husband both agree with the fence. It gives property value to it's really nicely done. It was not like a poor job. It's not obstructing anything or making any difference. So we agree with the fence. Just here to support it today.
Here to support, thank you. Anybody else here in the audience here to speak on the application? Seeing none, staff, would you like to weigh in, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've had a chance to review the application, and we believe that the application is supportable subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that the existing accessory shed in the rear yard be relocated to conform with the zoning bylaw within 60 days of the date of committee's decision. 3, that any fences located within the exterior side yard have a maximum height of 1 meter. And 4, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee will render the decision null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. So, sir, have you had an opportunity to review those conditions?
Yes, I just have one question. The exterior side yard, so that would technically be the front of my property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. So we're recommending that the current fence location be permitted at the height that it is, and then the other side would only be permitted at 1 meter. So
At
where
1
the
meter.
driveway is.
Is that existing currently?
Yes.
So would that have to be reduced?
Oh, there's no fence there right now, so
There is
we're
no
not
fence.
asking for anything to be removed.
Okay, that's why I wanted, because I noticed that there was another fence
Right.
on the other side, so just, I guess, it's a valid point to just verify if there's anything that needs to be changed.
If I may, just for clarification, sir, through you, this is the sketch that was attached
Right.
to the notice. The front yard being the shortest lot line abutting the street is where the high fence is. The exterior side lot line now is the longest line abutting the street. Sorry, the longest line abutting the street. So anything between the building and the street in this area could only be 1 meter.
Okay. Yes, I agree to the conditions.
Okay. and just so I can get my head around it. I know on Harper, there is a fence, though. On the,
Yes.
on the
Between the
left side
garage.
of the garage.
Yes.
On the left side of the garage being set back at least as far as the building from the street line, so it is in fact in the side yard.
Okay,
And not the
that's where the
exterior
clarity.
side
Okay.
yard.
So that fence is okay?
That
Along by
fence
the
is
garage.
fine, does not
And
need to
we've
be.
clarified that, perfect.
Yeah.
So, sir, you understand and agree to those conditions?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Any questions by committee members to staff or to the owner? Seeing none, seeking a motion to proceed. Motion to approve with conditions by Mr. Crouch, seconded by Ms. Doffler. All in favor? That carries. That is approved, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Calling application A 18035, Pritpal, Javinderpal, Carbons, and Ranveer Grewal. The property is located at 18 Rankin Court.
Good morning, council members. My name is Carlos Salazar, and I'm the authorized agent for 18 Rankin Avenue. We're proposing to do some renovations to make the home more accessible for my client. We're proposing a reduction in the front yard setback from 6 meters to 5.32 meters in order to enlarge the garage and provide an accessible vehicle. And we're also proposing to do a rear one-story addition, and we're asking for a reduction from 6 meters to 5.42 meters in order to provide an accessible bathroom for my client. And that's pretty much the extent of our renovations.
Thank you. Are there any questions by committee members to the agent? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none, for the record, we do have a letter of support from the neighbor at 20 Rankin, so that will be submitted for the record. Staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff reviewed the application with regard to the 4 tests as stipulated in the Planning Act and are recommending approval subject to the following 7 conditions. 1, that the variances only be approved to the general extent shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that the proposed one-story additions in the rear and front yard have a maximum height of 5 meters. 3, that the owner shall obtain a building permit for the proposed one-story additions in the rear and front yard prior to construction of the same. 4, that drainage from the proposed one-story additions in the rear and front yard flow onto the applicant's property and that drainage on adjacent properties not be adversely impacted. 5, that the owner shall submit elevation plans for the one-story additions in the rear and front yard depicting a proposed exterior finish that is consistent with the existing and adjacent dwellings to be approved to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services prior to construction of the same. 6, that the owner shall construct the one-story additions in the rear yard and front yard as depicted in the approved elevation plans as noted in condition 5. And lastly, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approved variances null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. So, sir, have you had an opportunity to review those conditions?
Yes, we agree with all.
And they are agreeable to you and your client?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions by committee members? Seeking a motion to proceed. Motion to approve by Mr. Nurse, seconded by Mr. Chada. All in favor? That carries. That is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling application A 18036, AJ and Baljit Baywall. The property is located at 10 Juliet Square.
Good morning, Council. So I'm looking for a permit for my side entrance. I already dig it in, it's already there, so.
Your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, my name is Ajay Bawa, A-J-A-Y, Bawa. And address is, my residing address is 52 Dearden Drive, Brampton.
Okay.
And I'm looking for this permit for my property on 10 Juliet Square, side entrance.
Okay. That's it, sir.
Yep.
Any questions by committee members to the owner? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none, we do have a letter in opposition of the application by a resident at 17 Juliet Square as well, so that will be submitted for the record. Staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff reviewed the application with regard to the 4 tests as stipulated in the Planning Act and are recommending approval subject to the following 7 conditions. 1, that approval of variance 1 be limited to the extent shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that variance 2 be approved in part, provided that a minimum setback of 0.4 meters is provided to the accessory structure from all lot lines. 3, that the owner shall obtain a building permit for the below-grade entrance and enclosure within 60 days of the final date of committee's decision. 4, that the enclosure around the below-grade entrance, apologies, that should read entrance, not enclosure, remain of an open-style construction. 5, that the below-grade entrance shall not be used to access an unregistered second unit. 6, that drainage from the accessory structure shed shall flow onto the owner's property and that drainage on adjacent properties shall not be adversely impacted. And lastly, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee will render the approved variances null and void. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. So just some clarity on condition 2. Is that just, I mean, the wording seems a little bit different. Is that just to verify that it maintains the 0.4?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. So on one lot line, it's showing 0.4, and on the other, it's 0.0. We're willing to support 0.4, but as it is a public walkway behind the property, we would prefer that that be approved at 0.4, so that drainage does not flow onto the public walkway.
Okay. And again, just for my own clarity as well, would that require modifications? So that would be something that would be dealt with if the client proceeds at the permit stage?
That is correct.
Okay. So, sir, do you understand and agree to all the conditions that have been, so they've been explained to you and you understand and agree to them?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns, committee members, to staff or to the owner? Any other conditions?
Just one comment, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, for clarification. Condition 4 references an enclosure around the below-grade entrance. And really, there's no enclosure around the below-grade entrance. And for staff who have to administer this condition in the future, 10 years from now, and might not understand what is intended, I would suggest that it's not enclosed at all. It's simply a setback to the roof. So the roof, I mean, I would just say that that the below-grade entrance remain unenclosed.
Okay.
And of open-style construction
Okay,
between the roof and the grade.
More just to maintain clarity for...
It really is for staff who haven't had any input and have not seen the photos, which don't form part of the decision.
Okay, so sir, you understand that the condition just being modified to ensure that no enclosure is to be added around the perimeter of that walkway or the entrance. So right now, there's just currently a white railing, correct?
There's a guard.
Yeah.
The guard is a requirement to meet building code.
That's a building code.
So there's a guard and there is a roof structure that overhangs it, but that's just a roof projection. It's not an enclosure.
Okay.
So if there were to be walls added, even if they were glass walls, that would not be permitted, and I don't think that's the intent of the decision or recommendation from planning staff.
We can still keep the roof? Or?
The roof can.
The roof is fine. It cannot be enclosed at any time.
Yeah.
And that's what staff is indicating, that the way that the wording was a little bit vague, and then if for whatever reason you wanted to enclose it at one, we wouldn't be able to understand if that was the intent or not the intent of the condition. So if you understand, the roof can remain, the guard is a requirement, that's a building code requirement,
yes,
but it cannot be enclosed at any time.
Understand.
Okay. Thank you. So with those amendments to condition 4, seeking a motion to proceed.
Motion to approve, but might I just suggest for that same item, just so the gentleman's question is answered, if there is projection?
I have modified some wording, and it will be through the Secretary Treasurer to provide the utmost in clarity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So,
Motion to approve.
with
as-
the amended wording.
Correct.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Chada. All in favor? That carries. That is approved, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Calling application A18037, Ranveer Chatta. Property is located at 10416 Airport Road.
Hi, my name is Ranveer Chada. I'm the owner of 10416 Airport Road. And I just want to be able to just put 2 desks and have an office, home office. But the bylaw right now only allows me to use 15% of the square footage. Because the house is small, I can only put 1 desk. I'm able to put 2 desks. It's a temporary variance because I've already submitted a development concept to the TRCA for an extension, and they've already said they have no objection, but I still have to get drawings and everything. So as soon as I have the extension built, I won't need the variance anymore.
Again, we'll get some clarification. So you're going to be seeking a rezoning? Is that what I understand, or?
No, it's my home office, but right now the square footage of the house is so small, I can't put 2 desks in my home office. I can only put 1.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to get my head around the whole variance, so maybe staff can shed some light on that. Okay, just so that,
Yeah.
because I understand what what the variance that is being sought. The latter comment kind of confused the issue a little bit to me.
Okay.
Okay, we'll continue. Any questions by committee members? Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none, we did get a letter of non-objection by the TRCA, so that has been submitted for the record as well. Staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff reviewed the application with regard to the 4 tests as stipulated in the Planning Act and recommending approval subject to 7 conditions. 1, that the home occupation shall not exceed a maximum gross floor area of 28 square meters within the building with a dwelling as indicated in the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that the home occupation shall only be permitted in conjunction with a residential dwelling. 3, that the owner shall submit grading plans to be approved to the satisfaction of the Director of Environment and Development Engineering. 4, that the owner shall complete the works as depicted in the approved grading plans noted in condition 3 prior to commencement of the home occupation use. 5, that the owner shall obtain any building and heritage permits that may be required for the proposed works prior to any construction within or occupancy of the dwelling. 6, that the below-grade entrance shall not be used to access an unregistered second unit. And 7, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of committee shall render the approved variances null and void.
Thank you. So one comment I have is in regards to some of the regional comments that were provided about entrance. It's the one entrance that is allowed and so forth. Is that something that's encompassed in staff's comments as well? Or not that it's a requirement, I think it's almost implicit, but at the same time, I just wanted to ask about that. That was something that the region had indicated, that the single access, you're not intending on providing it, or?
No, it's the regrading thing in number 3 that they recommended. I won't be regrading yet. The reason is building an extension to it, then I won't need the variance because then 15% will be enough. Once I build the extension, I have to regrade the whole property and build a new driveway. I don't want to build a new driveway before I build the extension because the heavy machinery will ruin the driveway. Right now, the driveway is dug up a bit because they had to run sanitary lines and water lines in. I'm fixing those holes, re-asphalting that a bit just to repair it, but I'm not regrading the whole property as they're asking me to do. I don't want to regrade the whole property till after I build the extension because to re-landscape everything and then having machinery come through to build the extension and have to do it again,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
a waste of money.
And you're not intending on adding another entrance?
No, not another entrance, I'm just extending.
Because that's where the
It's
region.
a small house, I want to make it bigger.
Yeah, I understand. Mr. Kevin?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So the grading plans, it's not insinuating the whole property. It would just be whatever's being changed to make sure that that it meets the requirements or satisfaction of the Director of Environment and Development Engineering. So it can be a spot on the property, it's not the whole property.
There's nothing that's being changed outside, I'm just, it's a one desk compared
Yeah,
to.
I understand.
The outside, I've already got the building permits, everything for the new sewage lines and stuff. So of course I have to patch up that asphalt and stuff. That's,
And the 300 square feet is adequate to your
yeah, I just need
needs?
to put 2 desks in, so that's adequate.
Any further comments by staff?
Just one caution, actually through you, Mr. Chair, for an understanding. If the owner is planning to expand the existing dwelling, it in all likelihood will require further variances because of the setback requirements in the agricultural zone. Assuming it's an expansion of the footprint of the building, if it's just a second-story addition, then obviously on the same footprint may not require any variances.
Yeah, I'm aware of all that. For the extension, I've already got the, TRC already approved the extension. I still have to submit, the feasibility plan, the development plan, they already approved it. I have to hand in drawings till I know afterwards TRCA, then afterwards the Heritage Department, then I'll come before you guys again.
Yeah, it looks like you're doing your due diligence.
But this is like a temporary thing I need until I get the extension.
Yeah, and Ms. Carozzo, I guess, is just cautioning that if you are expanding the footprint, you may be looking at potential new variances.
Probably lots of variances.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
just so that you
I'll
are,
know at that point.
that you are aware, so I
Yeah.
mean, it's good that you're doing, it looks like you're going through all the right steps, but it's fair to staff to just bring that up, so we do appreciate that as well. So, any other questions by committee members?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. The applicant is seeking a home occupation right now as of our decision. And in terms of the grading plans, then he will not be able to have the home occupation unless the grading plans are submitted. I'm just trying to understand whether if this is going to be a phased situation, whether the grading plans actually hinder some.
Yeah, so I'm not agreeing to doing the grading, regrading the property and stuff right now. I'm not agreeing to that because it doesn't make sense to build a new driveway to have it demolished.
Well, just so you're clear, and that's why when there is a condition that you are submitting grading plans that are to be approved to the submission, sorry, to the satisfaction of the Director of Environment and Development and Engineering. So that is a condition in this application, or recommendation that staff is putting forward.
Yeah, I'm not agreeing with that recommendation, that I have to regrade. To regrade, first, it's not even, I have to get a TRC approval for that as well. This is like,
Okay, so just for clarity.
if I regrade the property, then my extension.
It's not
would
saying
go
the
to-
property, so that's where I guess there is some subjectivity, is that there is some grading plans that need to be approved. So
I don't
maybe
know what
staff,
approval-
can we get some clarification on that as well?
They're thinking where I dug up the sewer lines. Of course, I have to just fix, there was already existing driveway that was built by the Region of Peel, which I dug up, and I have to re-asphalt it. But that I already have permits for all that.
Okay,
Through you, Mr. Chair. Do you understand that work has to be completed before you can use home occupation?
Oh, yeah, I have to fix that asphalt where, yeah. I don't know what drawings they're asking for, I have to just fix the asphalt.
yeah, I know, and it looks like staff is a little bit,
Yeah, so I'm not understanding that.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that condition was actually requested by our landscaping staff, which is under the Director of Environment and Development Engineering. So unfortunately, they're not here, but I think the intent is that that right-of-way should be reinstated.
would we perhaps just add that wording so that we're not putting a condition that potentially is more onerous on the applicant, in particular where he's acknowledging that there are, so if there is any other regrading that to be done, as you've indicated, that will require permits and so forth.
Yeah, all of that I know because I have to,
Yeah,
when I've been.
so probably an amendment to that.
Yep, I think we're agreeable to that.
Okay. Committee, are we understanding as well?
Yeah, the driveway will be repaired before. I take
Okay,
it.
so that's something that,
Yeah.
number,
So it was 3 and 4.
sorry?
Both conditions 3 and 4 are involved.
Yeah,
4 is the completion.
that's right.
And he's just agreed that he will complete it.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, right now, the Region Appeal is out there right now. They're actually digging it up again because, long story, my contractors dug up, couldn't find a pipe, so Regional Appeal is installing a pipe. They're there today, actually. And Jeanette, the commissioner, sent them out. Jeanette Smith.
It's okay, we don't have all the details.
She sent them out, and so it's being dug up again today. But once it's all dug up, I have to asphalt it. I'm hoping sometime in
Yeah, I think the
April
spirit
to
of what
move
we're
it.
trying to achieve is the same. We're just looking to clarify the wording so that there is nothing above and beyond, but at the same time, the rectification of the condition is done as well. Okay, so staff, we're looking at amending the conditions.
Yeah, through the chair, may I suggest that condition number 3 is not needed, and that condition number 4 be rephrased to say that the owner should complete the works for the driveway, regrading the driveway as depicted there. So that the owner shall complete the works for the regrading of the driveway prior to commencement of the home occupation use.
That's fair.
And then one further suggestion is in number 5 is to add a clause that it refers to building and heritage permits, to add a clause stating that if any are required.
If required. Okay. So, sir, have you read and agreed to all the conditions as they are amended?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Crouch?
What is the current heritage status of this property? Is it a Part 4 designation?
Yes, it's a heritage house.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is a designated property, and my understanding is that the applicant is working very closely with heritage staff, and they are in support of the application.
Would it be appropriate to ensure, for example, that there's no signage posted on the walls of the heritage home? Other things that the Heritage Board would be interested in, they haven't commented at all in the staff report, which surprises me with Part 4 designation.
I've spoken
When
to
I was still chairing it, I'd be
I've
outraged.
spoken to them, and there won't be none on the house, but they said I can put a small board on the property, but not on the house.
Ms. Corzola?
For clarification, through you, Mr. Chair, a sign on the property would not be permitted on a residential home occupation. The only sign that would be permitted according to the sign bylaw would be a small sign on the house. So if the Heritage Board or Heritage is not supporting a sign on the house, then no signage would be permitted for this home occupation. An amendment to the sign bylaw would be required site-specific if they wanted a lawn sign or a ground sign.
Okay, so sir, do you understand that?
Yep, I'll speak to the heritage.
Okay. So I'm glad Mr. Crouch brought that up and Ms. Corzola, just so that you're not anticipating something and at the same time we're working within the bylaws that are already in place. Okay. So we've made those modifications, our staff has put those recommendations forward. So we're eliminating condition 3, modifying 4 and 5, correct? Committee, we're all comfortable with that? Then seeking a motion to proceed. And sir, you're comfortable with those amendments?
Yes.
Motion to approve with amended conditions by Mr. Nurse, seconded by Ms. Doffler. All in favor? That carries. That is approved, sir. And I do applaud your efforts thus far in working within the system as well.
Calling application A18038, Noel and Christy Muscat. The property is located at 53 Dells Crescent.
Good morning, council members. My name is Noel Muscat. I live at 53 Dells Crescent. I moved in there March 10th, 2017, so it's only been less than a year. Everything that has been on the property was installed before we moved in. That includes any legal basement apartments, the stairs that are in question, the driveway that was modified in question. Since I moved in, I've been trying to apply for a legal basement apartment, or to legalize the basement apartment. From that process, it was brought to my attention that the stairs were too close to the property line. They were installed too close, and that the driveway is 7.3 meters, which is longer than what is appropriate for the, for my property. So, based on, sorry, first time. Sorry?
I'm just pulling up your photos, that's why I'm not ignoring you by no means.
Thank you. I've got some more photos. Based on the setbacks, the total should be, as I'm understanding, 5.9 feet in total from both sides. While it only provides for 2 feet on one side, what we do have is, well, I do have a mutual understanding with both of my neighbors in talking to both sides of, with both sides of the property. They are in agreement with what is happening with my property. In fact, I've talked to them about this whole case, and they, hindsight, I didn't get letters written, but they are in understanding of what is going on with this whole trial, and they have been actually helping me and supporting me with a few documents even. I have, if I can show them with the camera here, my neighbor on lot 70, which is one side down, gave me his whole Schedule B to help me understand what the plot lines are. The neighbor on the other side was explaining to me exactly when the stairs were built. He was giving me information about everything about that was going on with my house. He explained that it wasn't even the previous owner, it was the owner 5 years before. They've been very helpful in this whole process. While there are setbacks on the one side of the property, the other side of the property looks like this. It's it's opened up to between me and the other neighbor. We have a fence that is set back all the way to the back of the house. We have more than enough space for maintenance and safety issues. It allows us to definitely access the back side of our properties mutually at any time, if need be. So in terms of the first couple of variances there, in terms of setbacks, I think that it covers the idea of the fact that if there's ever a safety or maintenance issue, we can access our backyard. Okay. Covering to the driveway issue, I understand that we are allowed to, first of all, it's not something that I even thought of in terms of parking on the driveway, or sorry, parking on the adjacent pathway until it was even mentioned in the until it was mentioned in this inspection. I only use the driveway for purposes of driving. I only use the pathway for purposes of walking. I always have since I moved in. I always will. That's the intention for it. You do not see any tire marks on my pathway. You never will. If, based on the suggestion, if I need to put planters or a light post on there to continue using that or keep that pathway, I am willing to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. That being said, and we deal with this frequently, would likely entail, and I'll wait till staff does their presentation as well, but a refusal of that variance and then a rectification of putting in planters then puts you in, doesn't contravene the bylaw. So we'll get some explanation and clarity on that.
Okay.
Okay. So you are seeking, this is just for the variances that are being sought. The legal basement apartment aspect is a completely different entity.
It's a separate different entity, and I'm working on that.
But you are working on proceeding.
I've been submitting applications for it, but once I got to that application process, they stopped me in the process of looking at these infractions first, so I couldn't get to the application part.
Okay. Any questions by committee members to the owner? Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Sir?
Hello, committee members. I'm here in support of the application. I'm actually here in support of the person or the individual owner itself. I'm his cousin.
Just your name and address, sorry.
Kyle Pullis, 76 Main Street South. I just want to point out some of the points that my cousin here forgot to mention. First off, as you mentioned, the previous owner had built this all himself, and it was done very well and professionally done. Some of the points that I would like to just highlight here is that on the actual development in the building of the stairway to the, here's pictures of this somewhere. As you can see, this was built professionally. Everything on this property was done. Might not have been done through the permitting process, but it was certainly developed and built through building codes, or equal to. There's proper drainage, there's proper guardrails around the perimeter, as well as the slope of the stairs is appropriate as well. So the actual building and construction of the stairway to the rear.
Understanding and looking at it, it does look, there is no verification of that, however, correct?
No, not at this point, but it was also, I believe it was also noted in the city or staff report that it was constructed appropriately and that there was drainage involved and that sort of thing.
Yep.
I think, again, in my reading of the staff report is that their main concern was that due to the positioning of the building and or the home and the setbacks on both sides is that, again, looking at it from a purely black and white scenario, on one side, which is the shared side, the actual setbacks is 2 feet from the property lines. Although it's much greater than that in reality because of the positioning of the fence, is that there is no separation between the 2 yards and it allows for full and unobstructed access to the rear yard. So also my understanding that they want to maintain at least one of the side yards with greater than 2 feet access, and the side yard that has the stairway is currently the 1 yard in the property that has the greater than 2 feet access, which is why it was chosen to be putting the stairs in. Now, with the stairs in place as on the side of the property, there is still 2 feet from the stairs to the property line, making it a 5-foot total. So that is the wide side of the property, and like I said, that is the reason they put the stairs on that side. Now, again, if the property wasn't, or if the other side had fences along the entire side of the property, making it so that it was not accessible, and therefore only leaving the side with the stairs as the only side that they could walk past and use to maintain their property. We understand the concern in that sort of scenario, but because the adjacent side has unobstructed access to the rear yard, allowing them to access it with any sort of materials and or safety or maintenance concerns, it's something that we believe should be considered in this matter.
And respecting that, and we do deal with it again frequently, that fence could be erected at any time as well. So that's, I think, where staff potentially is. So we deal with, it's a balancing act. So understanding where you're coming from, and I've spoken to this a few times as well. If there are no further comments, we'll get staff's report, and then if there are any other questions at that point in time, unless you have something else further to add as well.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, staff reviewed the application with regard to the 4 tests as stipulated in the Planning Act and recommending approval in part, subject to 4 conditions. Through you, Mr. Chair, just to reiterate what you just mentioned in regards to ownership, the variance would carry over regardless of ownership, so we do consider moving forward that if the ownership does change and someone does erect a fence, just for clarification. Also, please note that conditions 4 to 6, as worded in the staff report, reflect standard conditions relating to below-grade entrances that were included in error. They are now since been removed, and the Secretary Treasurer has circulated a revised version. Staff are recommending refusal of both variances related to the below-grade entrance, as adequate access to the rear yard would not be possible from either side yard. Staff also recommend refusal of the variance related to the driveway width, which would permit 3 vehicles to be parked side by side in the front yard. As the applicant has indicated, The walkway parallel to the driveway is intended to be used only as a walkway. Therefore, it is staff's opinion that the variance to permit the walkway to be considered as parkable surface is not required, and the installation of a landscape feature to remove the walkway from parkable area is more appropriate. Accordingly, staff are recommending the following conditions. 1, that variance 4 only be approved to the extent indicated in the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that variances 1, 2, and 3 be refused. 3, that the owner shall install a landscape feature on or along the walkway adjacent to the driveway in a manner that prevents the walkway from being parked upon by the whole or part of a motor vehicle to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services within 90 days of the final date of the decision of committee, or as extended by the Director of Development Services upon receipt of a written request for extension from the owner. And 4, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approved variances null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a few questions here as well. Firstly, just again, more in terms of due diligence, regional comments alluded to CVC. Is there a CVC requirement at this? This is something.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can confirm that I've received communication from TRCA. They're saying that the property located at 53 Dells Crescent in Brampton is not located within CVC's regulated area.
Okay.
And as such, they will not be providing comments.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's our Secretary Treasurer does her job. Then the next question I have is in relation to, and this perhaps Ms. Corzola, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves by no means. Oftentimes when we have basement entrances sought for registered or for registration, staff puts in the condition that even if that basement that entrance is approved, it is not a primary entrance. Would that be something that would be the case here, or?
No, in fact, this one would be permitted to be considered the primary entrance because they do maintain that 1.2 path of travel to the entrance. Some of the more recent ones actually had just a slight reduction in that 1.2, even though the entrance was less than 1.2, so was the path of travel to that entrance. That's why that condition had been imposed in the past. If you are intending to support, you may want to suggest a condition that the entrance not be used to access an unregistered basement apartment. But for the purpose of registering, that entrance would qualify.
Okay. And that's good, I guess. I'm finding it difficult, and we're always wrestling with these. So I empathize with staff, and then we're always dealing with this. Where the differences are from one or the other. So we've dealt with one earlier on the agenda, and now we're dealing with another. I know there's obviously differences between the homes. I'm just wrestling with what the difference is here. Is it the space? And I know, again, it doesn't meet the bylaws, but I always have difficulties with those bylaws in particular, and I always allude to the whole scenario of a semi-detached home. So where is the fundamental difference here from staff's perspective?
Through you, Mr. Chair, are you referring to 10 Juliet Square as the previous one that we've dealt with?
I'm just using that as because I don't want to compare, because I know each application is different, and I stress that as well. But that's where, again, someone that's sitting in the audience or someone that's looking at it, and even from our perspective, where is that fundamental difference?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the fundamental difference would be that access to the rear yard is not maintained. There's I think one side 0.66 on one side yard, and then the other side has the 0.61 with the exterior below grade stairs. So the bylaw as written is intended that one side at a minimum provide access to the rear yard. In this case, both side yards now do not provide that adequate access. So according to the bylaw, it doesn't meet the intent of why the bylaw was worded that way.
Mm-hmm. And again, with all due respect to staff, is that bylaw has holes in it from my perspective, and I'm not an expert in it by no means. But again, I always relate it to instances that I see, and I know that an air conditioning is exempt from that bylaw, but that creates a larger impact than most scenarios that we deal with. So again, I don't want to get in a debate of the bylaw because I understand the spirit and I think we need to maintain that spirit. I just don't see where the difference is on some and so in this case, I think it actually is supportable from my perspective. In terms of the driveway, I think staff has done a good job of highlighting the fact that even if we refuse the driveway, maintaining that walkway is achievable. That variance is not required because if you do sell that house, you may not have intentions of using that, but we see citywide that it becomes a difficult thing to manage when that variance is kept because 3 cars can be fit, and that's where staff's perspective is, not speaking on staff's perspective. But anyway, that's from my 2 cents in terms of I could support this because I think that it's been done correctly with the conditions being added to have a building permit requirement. In fact, the conditions that were previously there reinstated, and just condition 1 to read 1, 2, and 4, and then condition 2 to read number 3. But that's my opinion, and if there's any comments by staff, by committee as well.
Mr. Chair, just one clarification. The fence is located, the stair entry is located close to the fence. So in terms of going for a building permit, would there be a request to relocate the fence if this were approved? And will that affect a variance?
It wouldn't affect a variance, but I do thank you for raising it. The fence is dangerously placed right with a door swinging in right at the top of those stairs. My staff almost fell into the stair trying to maneuver through the snow. If you are intending to support the below-grade entrance, it would be my recommendation that you require that the gate swing outward towards the front of the property. And that allows for the path of travel to be maintained, and it also increases the safety. I don't think building code would catch it, and it's certainly not a zoning contravention, but it is a safety issue.
And that's actually a great point. And building code would not catch it from your perspective?
Building is looking at the construction. The fence doesn't require a permit. They're looking at the construction of the opening and obviously the guard and the protection of that opening from the side, but you do need to be able to walk down the stairs from the front. There's no requirement for a guard there. The fence is just a landscape feature that would otherwise not be considered in the permit.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can we simplify this in some way rather than mixing and matching? So I think what you're saying and what I would agree with is that I would be willing to support this application with the adjustment in the swing of the fence door and the fence's door. And then the sidewalk next to the driveway, that some planters be placed there so that cars can't drive upon it.
Respectfully, I think that condition 3 meets that. Perhaps just an additional condition to speak to the actual gate of that fence that is constructed to make sure that it isn't an oversight from building department and that it swings on an outward fashion. Correct? Is that correct? So maybe just adding between 6 and 7, another condition, or wherever is deemed appropriate. Any other comments or concerns by committee members?
Mr. Chair, I continue to have real concern about the reduction of access to back parts. I know that from time to time I've deferred on decisions made by this committee, but I think it's an important safety issue.
Okay. Any other comments or concerns? Okay, so we've had some conversation. I guess we need a formal motion to proceed. So understanding we haven't really put anything forward, and then there are conditions that staff had recommended. And if there are any amendments, I'll ask if they're acceptable and agreeable to you as well.
Okay.
Is there a motion being put forward?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll put forward a motion to approve the application, which would include staff recommendations number 1, 3, 4 through 7, and to add a note about changing the swing of the gate fence at the top of the fence.
Staff understanding what is being put forward?
Through you, just for clarification, is a motion to amend conditions 1 and 2, so basically to approve variances 1 and 2? Because right now, as written, they would refuse variances.
Correct.
1 and 2, just for clarification.
1, 2, and 4. No, not conditions, variances. So is that the intent of your motion, is to approve 1, 2, and 4 and refuse 3?
Variance number 3 would entail putting planters in place.
Which condition 3? Variance 3, so,
Through you, Mr. Chair. I've been keeping track of what is being said, and if I may, I'd like to read what I think everyone's trying to get at.
Yeah.
Condition 1, that variances 1, 2, and 4 only be approved to the extent indicated in the sketch attached to the public notice. Condition 2, variance 3 be refused. Condition 3, that the owner shall install landscaping feature within 90 days. Condition 4, that the owner shall obtain the building permit for the below-grade entrance within 60 days. Condition 5, that drainage from the below-grade entrance shall flow onto the applicant's property and drainage on adjacent properties not be affected. Condition number 6, that the below-grade entrance shall not be used to access an unregistered second unit. Condition number 7, that the fence, this wording might have to be worked a little bit, but that the fence gate swing toward the front of the property. And lastly, condition 8, that failure to comply with and maintain conditions of the committee shall render the approved variances null and void. I think that's what is being discussed.
that's where my comfort level is at, but Ms. Doffler's motion, if that's okay. Do we have a seconder to that motion? I will second that motion. All in favor, sir, gentlemen,
Just trying to follow.
yes.
So,
Bit of a bouncing
variance
ball.
3 is the widened of the driveway, whereas there will be planters there to,
Basically, it's essentially a refusal of that variance.
right,
So, but there are remedies to that, and the planners are the remedy, and the condition number 3 specifies that requirement.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, it doesn't have to just be planters, and you can speak to zoning, and Elizabeth can speak, or Ms. Corzola can speak to that, but it's just landscape feature. We left it that way, so there's some discretion if they want to put in a light post, for example, or something to that degree. The key is just that it's not parkable.
Correct.
okay.
Okay. So do you understand and agree to those conditions?
I do.
Okay. So, Ms. Doffler has put forward that motion. I've seconded that motion. All in favor? That carries 3-2. That is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Understanding that this is subject still to the appeal period, anyone can put an appeal within the 20-day appeal period.
Okay, thank you very much.
Calling application A 18039, Naroshama De Silva and Lalani De Silva. The property is located at 20 Aiken Circle.
Good morning, council members. My name is Niroshima De Silva. I'm the owner of 20 Atkins Circles. Can you hear me? Niroshima De Silva.
Okay.
My name, I'm the owner of 20 Atkins Circle. And I'm requesting variances for above grade side door that was put in by the previous owners. Also steps for those side entrance. And also I have a shed at the back that does not meet one of the setbacks from the property lines.
Anything further, sir?
That's it.
That's it. Any questions by committee members to the owner? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none, staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, staff reviewed the application with regard to the 4 tests as stipulated in the Planning Act and recommending approval subject to the following 6 conditions. 1, that the variances only be approved to the extent indicated in the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that the above-grade door on the north side wall of the existing dwelling be lowered to a height that will not require more than 2 steps for access. 3, that the owner shall obtain a building permit for the above-grade entrance within 60 days of the final date of the decision of committee. 4, that the above-grade entrance shall not be used to access an unregistered second unit. 5, that drainage from the accessory structure shall flow onto the applicant's property and that drainage on adjacent properties shall not be adversely impacted. And lastly, 6, that failure to comply with and maintain conditions of the committee will render the approved variances null and void.
Thank you. So, sir, do you understand and agree to all those conditions?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
The only thing is I would just ask you about number 5. I'm not very familiar with what that meant. Like both of the grades are sloping downwards?
Yeah, I don't know how it really applies, but if there are any modifications to the stairs or anything, it's just, and perhaps staff can speak to it, where drainage comes into effect on this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the drainage is actually regarding the accessory structure, so the shed in the rear yard,
Okay.
not the stairs.
Oh, I see, okay. I'm not changing anything there. It's as it is.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just, you're agreeing to that.
Yes.
For instance, if there is a overhang that, you would have to put a soffit, an east trough on it. Basically, that just maintains that water from your property stays on your property.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. My one question applies to the 2-step aspect here.
Yes.
Is that even feasible from the way that the door is built right now? I mean,
Yes.
it is?
I checked it. It's they have a lip on the inside.
So you have to step over,
Correct.
basically as a curb right now?
The guy who had done it previously had put a 1-foot lip.
Okay.
It's weird.
So that's good. Staff had
Yeah.
obviously looked into that with yourself because I didn't want you to agree to something that's not feasible. It just wouldn't make
No,
sense.
I thought through it quite a bit. And so I have to cut it and drop it down,
Okay?
and then it will enable me to use 2 steps to get in.
Which would be a proper way of doing it regardless.
Correct.
And the whole point of a building permit verifies that as well.
Correct.
Okay?
It wasn't me. It was when I.
Yeah, no.
So,
No onus on you right now. But yeah, that's something that I just wanted to clarify because if it wasn't feasible, we'd be, you'd have to be coming back. So anyway.
In fact, I gave them some drawings of what I'm.
You will require that, one of the conditions that are being put forward is for a building permit.
Correct.
And all the technical aspect would be required at that point in time as well.
Correct.
So you agree to all the conditions that are being?
Absolutely.
No? Any questions by committee members? Ms. Corzola?
So sorry, for your consideration and just to apply the utmost in clarity, condition 4, this is a situation where that entrance does not qualify as a principal entrance to the second unit. So it might be imprudent to add that for clarity. So condition 4 currently reads, the above-grade entrance shall not be used to access an unregistered second unit. And I would recommend that you add or as the principal entrance for a registered second unit.
Is that, because one of my plans is to register the whole thing, so.
As I understand it, the entrance of the plans show the principal entrance for the second unit through the main door of the house. Because there is the side yard is less than 1.2 meters, it's only 1.8 or 1.18 meters, so it's just under the threshold for a second unit. It cannot qualify for a principal entrance.
So I'm missing only 1 inch.
Not even.
Less than 1 inch,
Yeah.
right? So.
I think Ms. Corzola is actually doing above and beyond in terms of, that would be, if 1 inch or 1 centimeter is irrelevant, it doesn't meet the bylaw.
Okay.
Is your intention to register?
Down the road, that's.
Down the road, okay, and the primary entrance would be that side entrance, or would it be from the front entrance as indicated.
The front is from the side entrance.
So the primary would be, so at this time,
It's more of a caution that that entrance does not meet the requirements for a second unit. Second unit requires a minimum path of travel to the entrance of 1.2 meters, and the 1.81 meters isn't sufficient.
okay. So is that something that is within our scope to look at, or would that be something that?
Not without a new application. It would have to be evaluated for compliance. and-
Because the way it is right now, as it is, I was okay because I was going to register all that.
Correct, but Ms. Corzola has brought up the concern that even through the registration process,
Yeah.
which is not within this committee's authority.
Right.
It's completely different aspects that are looked at, that this may meet the criteria of the side entrance,
Yes.
but it does not meet the criteria of a principal entrance to even a registered basement apartment.
Okay.
So
So what do I have to do for that then?
that's something that we can't comment on, that you would have to speak to staff. From what I'm
Yeah.
understanding is either the principal entrance would be from the front,
Yeah.
or a additional variance may be sought after the process is evaluated.
That's correct. There are alternatives. People do readjust their plans. The entrance can continue to be used as a secondary entrance. In any event, I would add that if it was to be a principal entrance to a second unit, it would require a landing, not just stairs.
Right.
Building code would require a full 3-by-3-foot landing in that area, so it
Then
would
which-
have to be modified in any event, but it also doesn't qualify. So the alternative is to either put it through the front yard or to otherwise relocate the entrance to comply with the bylaw.
So the thing what I want, I don't want to do it right now. If I need to do that, then I got to do a different avenue, right?
Correct.
So that hasn't been told to me here, and that was a problem. Like
Where is here, sir?
in here it says unregistered second unit.
Because this process is completely
Different.
separate from the registration process.
Right.
To be fair to you, I can understand you're confused on that, but it's a completely different process. I think actually, again, not to praise staff too much, but at the same time, they're doing their due diligence of highlighting that fact.
Okay.
Because you don't want to go in blind and then have expectations.
Yeah.
The expectations are clearly that this is what we are potentially looking at, and that's what they're recommending.
Okay.
And what Ms. Corzola had suggested is to modify condition 4 to highlight the fact that even for a registered basement apartment, it will not be allowed as principal entrance. So that you go in to this process with your eyes wide open.
Right.
And then
Sure.
can make the alterations if required and when required.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure. But I don't have to come back to a zoning meeting on that one? That's what I was not sure.
Not for this application.
Okay.
But if you intend on registering a basement apartment,
Yeah.
there may be other variances that are sought after.
Okay.
But that is something that we're speculating on.
Okay. No
We
problem.
can't make decisions on things that haven't occurred.
Sure. No problem.
Okay?
Okay.
So, committee, Ms. Corzola has put in that recommendation.
Can I request something else?
Sure.
Because I'm not sure what's going on now, because everything here was fine with me. Can you give me extension on the number 3, where it says 60 days? Give me some time, because like right now, the way it is, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But he's just put a condition now,
Staff, any concerns with that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's the standard condition that's required for, or suggested, recommended, I should say, from building department in cases where there's something that has been constructed without a permit.
60 days does actually mean 80 days, just so you're, because there's a 20-day appeal period.
Right.
So.
I'm not going to appeal, but what I'm going to say.
No, but what I'm getting at is that it's actually more than 60 days already.
Okay.
If you think that you need, what would you be requesting, sir?
I don't know. I got to talk to the building service guys, see what they want me to do, and then I want to try and see what I need to do from there, because I don't know what to do now, because everything the way.
I understand. It's
Yeah.
just we either have to have you request something or we need to put something forward. 60, as staff has indicated, is a standard request or recommendation.
Right.
And it's applied for, and
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, just, and I appreciate and respect your concern with that, but it's just the application process, and at that point in time, any of those concerns can be dealt with.
Okay,
Okay?
I'm fine.
So you understand and agree
Yeah,
to
yeah.
those conditions and the modification of that condition?
Yep.
Okay? Committee members seeking a motion to proceed?
Motion to approve with the amended. Condition 4.
Okay, by Mr. Crouch. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Nurse, all in favor? That carries, that is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling application A18040, Sanjit Suri and Saya Suri. The property is located at 17 Kingsmere Crescent.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Manjeet Multani. I'm representing Sanjit Suri and Sia Suri. This is regarding permit to cover 33%, whereas the bylaw permits only 30% of the coverage in the backyard, and to permit an existing accessory structure having a side yard setback of 0.20 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum side yard setback of 0.6 meters, 1.97 feet.
Questions or comments by committee members to the agent? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this application? Seeing none, we do have a written request here explaining the whole scenario of the prior decision. And a request for the fee reimbursement, which we will deal with that subsequent to this actual application.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Myers, that's proper protocol? Okay, staff, would you like to weigh in with your comments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff reviewed the application with regard to the 4 tests stipulated in the Planning Act, recommending approval, subject to 6 conditions. 1, that all variances approved through application A17-213 be declared null and void. 2, that variance 1 shall only apply to the open roof porch with a maximum height of 4.5 meters. 3, that the variances shall be approved only to the extent indicated on the sketch attached to the public notice. 4, that a building permit shall be obtained for the open roof porch within 60 days of the committee's decision to approve the application. 5, that drainage from the accessory structure identified in the public notice as existing shed be directed onto the subject property, and that drainage on adjacent properties shall not be adversely impacted. And lastly, 6, that failure to comply with and maintain the above noted conditions will render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Committee members, any questions for staff? Seeing none. Ma'am, you've had an opportunity to review those conditions,
Yes.
and they are agreeable and acceptable to you?
Yeah, the client is agreeable. My client agrees to that.
Okay. If there are no questions or concerns, seeking a motion to proceed. Motion to approve with conditions as indicated by Mr. Crouch, seconded by Ms. Stoffler. All in favor? That carries. That is approved. So we move on to the request for fee reimbursement. So any additional information on that, ma'am?
No, no. It's just that if the fee is reimbursed, that's okay.
Okay.
Conditions. But
so-
my client had to go through a lot of problem because of this.
Yeah.
This whole process was delayed.
Yeah.
Because of an error committed by somebody in the line.
So
I don't want to point out fingers, but yeah.
Yeah, I understand. So I guess one question, because to refresh my memory, was this previously built, or was it,
It's previously built.
right? And the condition, where did the 9 feet come from?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There was a staff error in calculating in the previous report, in calculating the height of the porch. I think what happened is that it was taken from the floor of the porch to the roof as the measurement rather than
Not
the
from
grade of the ground, grade of the ground to the roof. So that was the error that was in the report.
Okay. That being said, I can support the reimbursement in lieu of the fact that it was not an error from the applicant's side, it was an error from the staff side. So that's my point, but looking for a motion to proceed if there are no further comments.
The two fees the same, the original and the app.
The original and the new one, yes, same fee for variance, yes.
Any, sorry, Mr.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm also in agreement with the reimbursement.
Any other comments? Seeking a motion to proceed then. Motion to reimburse by Mr. Crouch, seconded by Ms. Doffler. All in favor? That carries, that is reimbursed.
Thank
or to
you.
be reimbursed. Any further business? I'm not seeing any. Seeking a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn?
By Mr. Chadha, seconded by Ms. Doffler. All in favor? That carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.